Good evening. It's not the best of days for Manchester United Football Club. It's a day where we need to sit there and consider the legacy of Denis Law. No middle name, born on the 24th of February 1940, the son of a fisherman and a proud Aberdonian. Joined Huddersfield in 1956. We played 91 games and scored 19 goals. Manchester United wanted him, but regardless, we didn't get him. 1960, he went off to Manchester City for £55,000. United had bought Albert Quixel. They'd bought Maurice Setters. They couldn't afford to get another player. Matt Busby had to wait again. He had a season at City where he scored 25 goals in 50 games. And after that, went to Torino for £110,000 and returned in 1962, joining United for £115,000, a club and a British record. That December, he married his childhood sweetheart, Diana. That season, we won the FA Cup with Law scoring a hat-trick of hat-tricks in that campaign, and it was the first trophy for Manchester United since the Munich air disaster. The next season, he scored 4 hat-tricks on his way to 46 goals, a record that still stands today. He also became the only Scot to win the European Player of the Year award. He scored 39 goals in all competitions the next season. That's 2 seasons, the most prolific of any forward at Manchester United, with another league title. Bobby Charlton joined him as a European Player of the Year in 1966, but injuries started to affect him. 49 goals in 2 seasons and 1 more league title was followed up with 10 in the cup final winning season of 67-68, which Denis watched from hospital. George Best won the European Player of the Year in 1968, making the Holy Trinity the only attack in history to have 3 Ballon d'Or winners whilst playing together. He came back with a bang, 30 goals in 45 games in 68-69, and a good ratio followed despite injuries. And in 1973, he left once again for Manchester City, having played 404 games for Manchester United and scoring 237 goals, the 3rd best in history, behind Bobby Charlton and Wayne Rooney. Tommy Docherty sent him on his way controversially, and his last goal was equally as controversial, a back heel that sealed Manchester United's relegation thanks to results elsewhere. Denis didn't really want to play football after that, but he did. For Scotland, where he was the top scorer with Kenny Dalglish, 30 goals in 55 games. His game in the 1974 World Cup was his last professional game. He has 2 statues at Old Trafford, the only player to do so. In September 2002, the Stretford End adorned their hero, and the Trinity statue in 2008. In 2003, Denis successfully beat prostate cancer. In August 2021, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and with vascular dementia. On January the 18th, 1964, the Holy Trinity played for the first time together. 61 years later, almost to the day, they've been reunited as Denis Law passed away at the age of 84 years old on January the 17th. In my era, people call Eric Cantona the king. Anybody older than me will tell you, no, that's Denis Law. He's a legend. He's the king. And we just wanted to say from everybody here at All for United just how much we appreciate everything that Denis Law did. Our thoughts, our prayers go out to his family. Thank you, Denis. Thanks for everything.
Good evening and welcome to All for United. And I think we can all echo what Barry's just said about Denis Law, an absolute legend. Lovely tribute by Barry there for a legend of the club, a legend of football. I think we can all echo that. Got 2 great guests to talk us through I don't know how you described it last week. I don't know. I mean, a week's a long time in football, isn't it? But we're going to get into it. Adam, it's been a few weeks since we had you on. How are you, pal?
Yeah, good, mate. As you know, I've been moving house, hence new surroundings, which is why I've not been able to get on as much to chat to you guys, but really happy to be back. Thanks for having me again.
Lovely. Stressful as anything in it, house move. So I hope that's all gone well for you, buddy.
Poorly performing United doesn't help anything.
Daz, how are we? You muted. Muted.
Apologies.
Try again.
Barry normally takes it off for me. But yeah, I'm all good considering. It's been a bit of a crappy week, if we're honest. First the Southampton performance, obviously the passing of Denis. Anyone that's followed United long enough will know what he means to the club. You've only got to have, gone to Old Trafford. Massive statue of the Trinity outside, and if you've got parents and grandparents that have supported United, you've heard the stories. And obviously today's performance, not a good week. It could have been better, but from a personal point of view, I'm good.
Yeah, like you say, I mean, Law was an absolute legend of the club, wasn't he? It would have been nice if they'd have put out a performance today, which kind of echoed that. But we're going to get to today's performance. We're going to scoot back a few days to Thursday's performance. I want this to be a bit of a week's review sort of thing. So talk me through the Southampton performance, Adam.
I was on Old Trafford on Thursday, and I think the word to sum up just United at the moment in general is just frustrating. I think I said earlier on your live stream on TikTok, Beanie, we may as well be renamed Jekyll and Hyde FC, because you really don't know what United team are going to turn up. Southampton, when we went 1-0 down, it got to the 80th minute. I thought, wow, we genuinely are in a relegation battle here. We cannot beat who are going to be the worst ever Premier League side, with all due respect to them in terms of points tally. I think Derby County got 11 points and they're on track to beat that. We can't beat them at home. What is going on? And it took Ahmad to pull it out of the hat and get us a hat-trick to get us the victory. It was a very poor performance. I thought we looked leggy. I thought we looked tired mentally and physically. I think the Arsenal game really took it out of them. The 120 minutes and going down to 10 men and having to really work hard to get that victory. And that hangover's continued into the weekend, I think.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I mean, Daz at Southampton, Onana with a string of saves kind of saved our blushes, didn't he? At half time, it was still only 1-0. They were booed off at half time. Do you think that was fair?
Probably not. No. To be fair, I think if we're going to be fair to Southampton, we should have been losing 2-3-0 at half time with the way we was playing and the way they were playing. It's not hard being bottom of the league, knowing that you probably are going to get relegated no matter what, and then having to play a Man United team that's just had two decent results against probably the best two teams in the Premier League on the day. So, and they handled that really well, and they just flipped the switch. I think I come off at half time, and I actually made the prediction, didn't I, midweek? And I actually said I can see Man United losing 3-0. I actually said that, and I came away from that, and I thought to myself, no, what am I being so negative for? And we got to half time, and I'm actually saying to myself, what am I going to do? I'm actually right. We're going to get beat 3-0. You could see it. I think we talk about, I think it was the worst performance I've ever seen post Alex Ferguson. And forget about the result, because there's been, the result was just salvaged in the last 8-10 minutes of the game. But for me, I think it was the worst performance, especially that first 45 minutes. We seem to be robbing Southampton, being only 1-0 down, if that makes sense. But yeah, there was a couple of good saves made, a couple of good defensive performances, if you can say that. But yeah, I think we was very, very lucky to be 1-0 down. Because obviously at 1-0 you can still get back in the game. I think the goal was unfortunate because it was a home goal.
Yeah, I think the common consensus between us sort of level-headed fans, Adam, was that Southampton was the game of Liverpool, Arsenal. Southampton was the game that we were going to see. Mentally, what this team was made of. Could we do it against the bottom of the league? What do you think's happening there? Is it a mental thing? Is it are they just not good enough? Do they not like teams just really having to go? Because Southampton, in fairness to them, that lad on there left had Euro on absolute toast, didn't he? What's the issue? Is it we don't like teams having a go at us? We don't like being the team that should be in the ascendancy of the game? What's
where we really struggle we really struggle, ironically, against teams that play transitional football. We can't break teams down that play the low block. We don't, because the team's set up to be a transitional football team. Ten Hag said it 2 summers ago. We're going to be the best transitional football team in the world. £200 million was subsequently spent on us becoming the best transitional football team in the world. So when you get a team that plays the low block and hits you on the counter, we just don't have an answer for it. And Brighton did it today over and over again down the right-hand side. So I think there is a mentality thing as well. And what I've noticed is they're really struggling at Old Trafford at the minute. I think they can feel the anxiety, the weight, the pressure from the crowd, the boos, the gaffs, the shouts, the annoyance when a pass doesn't go right or a tackle's missed or someone's not pressed or whatever it might be. And their heads start going down and they start then going a bit too fast, trying to do things a bit too quickly, playing the misplaced pass, not being the right side of the person, whatever it might be. I really think they're struggling. And we saw that against Liverpool and Arsenal. When they're away from home, it's almost like pressure's off. We should be battering teams like Southampton with all due respect to them. That should be one of those games where it should have been 4 or 5-0 at half time. Game over, make your 5 subs in the second half, rest a few players onto the next one. But we're just consistently making these games hard for ourselves, and it's our own fault. It's our own doing. It's always individual errors, people not doing the jobs properly, just the basic simple things which Amron's touched on several times. We're just getting that wrong. So what do you do there? I really don't know. How do you change that around, improve it? It's a really difficult one to answer at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We're giving away some very soft goals at the moment. But touching on something Adam said there, Amrin himself, after the Southampton game, said Old Trafford's nervy. Old Trafford is expecting making the fixtures harder at home, kind of like what Adam's just said. But we should expect to be beating Southampton at home, shouldn't we? We should expect a higher level of performance at home, shouldn't we? We should be the team that's on the front foot. I mean, I'll touch on this a little bit later with the Brighton game, but that's not too much to expect, is it? As a United fan sitting at Old Trafford expecting us to be on the front foot against Southampton, really?
100%. I think this is why I think it's the worst performance post Alex Ferguson, because no disrespect to Southampton, they are probably going to go down as the worst Premier League team in the history. They might be a good Championship team, but they're a very poor Premier League team. And despite all of our problems, you've only got to look at the table to see that Man United are a Premier League football club. It's not a great one this year, but we are still a Premier League football club, and we are still at the quality of a Premier League football club. You've only got to look at the Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City game. There has been examples there, even back when we go as far back to Everton when we beat them 3-4-0. We are a good football team, and we are a Premier League football team, and we was at home. This is a Southampton team that can't score from set pieces unless you play Man United, and obviously it's a given, isn't it? But this is a Southampton team that just doesn't score goals. I mean, there wasn't a threat beyond that own goal, but not a big threat, but they could have easily scored 2 or 3 goals. Had Onana not sort of saved us. But 100%. I mean, I said to you in a message on WhatsApp, didn't I? If you put together the worst possible team Manchester United could have put out, which would have been like Heaton, Amas, Collier, Johnny Evans, these players in that team, the worst possible 11 we could have played, you look at that team and you would still expect it to beat Southampton 100%. So I get that this team was mentally exhausted. You could see, I mean, you've only got to see Harry Maguire coming up against a couple of games ago. You can see that this team was exhausted against Southampton. And when you play bottom of the league, sometimes it does get a bit tricky for any team. But this is when players need to be stepping up. When it does get a bit awkward. And it seemed to be that the players that we've been relying on to step up, like Ugarte's, seem to step down. And I'm like, it's... But yeah, I think having Brighton is a game where you can say could go either way, and it obviously did until that howler could have, it was 2-1, and obviously we're going to discuss that in a bit. But when you play Southampton at home, it's the one game of the season that you look at and you say, that's guaranteed 3 points. And I know nothing's guaranteed, obviously not, but you know, the one game that if you was to put your house on, it'd be that game. Southampton winning at home, I'm putting my money on it. To walk away from that game thinking that potentially we look more like Southampton than Southampton and they look more like Liverpool was absolutely shocking. And
we made them look good.
Yeah, and I think that's why I said it was the worst performance of the post-Alex Ferguson, because of where both teams are and the quality of both teams and the complete shift in the two, especially on the back of some good results, good performances.
Yeah, I mean, there was a great bit on TNT. I mean, you wouldn't have seen it, Adam, being at the game. They brought up, just as Southampton were lining up their corner, they brought up a stat that said goals from corners, and Southampton was 0. And like 16 seconds later, it's in the back of the net. You couldn't write it. But the first half was shocking against Southampton. I think we can all agree. But the second half, I mean, Amorim was quite proactive. I thought he made some good substitutions, and I think you have to give him credit for that. He saw it wasn't working. He gave it a little bit of time in that second half, and he pulled Højlund and I want to say Garnacho, I can't remember, but he made a couple of substitutions very early. And I thought Xerxes was very good in that second half, Adam. I thought he did exactly what Højlund wasn't doing, and I thought he was really good.
Yeah, Old Trafford was getting on Højlund's back a little bit through that first half. I said this in my post-match review that I did. He sometimes tries too hard to fight with defenders, and for me, that's not his strength. His strength is turning and sprinting into space. Yeah. He's a fast lad. He's like a gazelle when he's in full pelt. And what he was trying to do for that entire game was just back into the defender fight with them. And every single time, he was just losing the ball. And if you've watched Almiron's system, you know what he likes to do. It's quick passes out from the back into the striker who holds it up for the 10s and the wing backs to run past them, flick it on, and bang, you're in on goal. That's how he likes to play his system. And Højlund just wasn't doing that. He just looked really lost. He just looked really invisible. And Xerxes did it when he came on, and that is Xerxes' strength. He's very good at holding up the ball. Okay, he might not have great attributes elsewhere, but one thing he is very good at is holding up the ball, and he just brought a lot more aggression to that second half, and he just really got the crowd up and got behind them. And you could see galvanised them once that started to happen. Some better tackles were going in, some better passes were being done, and it ultimately led to Ahmad popping up with a 12-minute hat-trick, which was fantastic, obviously, for him, and saved our blushes, as you said earlier.
Yeah, I mean, Xerxes he brings players together much more than Højlund, doesn't he? I think Bednarek, the Southampton centre-back, he won't have an easier 45 minutes than he had against Højlund the other night. I mean,
it was simple for him, it really was.
Yeah, exactly. He made it far too easy for him. As you say, it's all about pace, isn't it, Højlund? I'm surprised that we don't utilise that more. I mean, there's clearly a game plan to pump it up to him, and Amorim wants us on transition, doesn't he? He wants the striker to be bringing in those wingers. I'm not sure that's Højlund's game, as you said. But another one that come on, Daz, who I thought he was very good. He was very good against Arsenal, I thought, when he come on. Toby Collier, he's got real energy. He's got real enthusiasm for the game. And I thought he did really well when he came on again against Southampton. I thought he changed the game as much as Xerxes did. He gave us that energy and he gave us those legs in midfield, which I thought Mainu was struggling a little bit. He was maybe giving Ugarte a little bit too much to do against Southampton, I thought. What did you think of Collier when he came on?
I think he's doing what we need him to do at this point in his career. I think he's coming on. He's not having a bad game. He's adding to the energy. He's making the opposition think a little bit and work for it a little bit. No one's expecting him to be Rodri right now. You know, we're not expecting him to be Rodri, Michael Carrick, Declan Rice. He's far too young for that. But this is the point where, a bit like Mainu was last year, that, you know, you can bring him on the pitch and he's going to do a good job. He's not going to have a negative impact on the game. And I'm so proud of that, because that is what we need. I think Manchester United, come the summer, we'll be sat here saying that we've just lost 2 or 3 midfielders and we need to be replenishing the team. We're obviously not going to be bringing in 3 midfielders, so it's so important to know that there's players like Collier that can step into maybe the role that we see from Eriksen right now. You might only play one every 3 games, or you might come on every game for 10, 15 minutes. But you just add that energy, which lifts the rest of the team up a little bit, which is what Amorim's football's all about, energy. And I think he's been doing great with that. Even today wasn't a great game from, but it's as if we just need the energy. And so when a player can come on and add the energy and do it in a positive way, it's absolutely fantastic. So I've got no complaints about Collier and where he is and where he should be.
I mean, you mentioned Eriksen there, Daz. Do you think there's still a place for Eriksen? Obviously, he came on and assisted one of Ahmad's goals, didn't he? Do you think there's still a place in that midfield for Eriksen?
Yeah, I think he offers. I like Kobe Mainoo, and I think Kobe Mainoo is one for the future. I think he's going to sit into this Man United team long term better than people think. But since the shifting managers, I would honestly say Collier probably suits this midfield maybe better than Kobe Mainoo does. And that's just individual characteristics. That could just be that Kobe Mainoo's in that position where maybe Garnacho is at the minute, that the system's a bit different. It doesn't quite work to your favour anymore. We just need a bit of time to adapt and learn this new system and learn a new way of football. Because all Kobe Mainoo has known his whole career is to hold the ball a little bit more, whereas now we need to be moving quick. You need to be covering quite a lot of spaces to stop players getting in between them lines. And I just think Collier offers that a little bit better than Kobe Mainoo right now.
Yeah, that's fair. One of the more negative performances, I think it's fair to say, in the game, Adam, was Lenny Yoro. As I said earlier, he got ripped apart, didn't he, by that left winger. Do you think that's the sort of game he can learn from? And that's an important game for a lad of his age.
Yeah, we've got to remember he's a teenager. He came back from a really bad injury, actually, when you think about how much time he was out and he had to have surgery and everything else. And he's only played a handful of games for us now. And it's the first bad performance he's put in, if you ask me. All his other performances, his cameos off the bench, have been really, really solid for, like you say, a lad as young as that. So, yeah, I have no concerns about him. It's just going to be one of those performances. He looks back, hopefully he reviews, reflects on it, and he learns a couple of things from it, really. But I'm not going to criticise him at all because he's far too young into his Manchester United career for us to be starting to do that. It was just that winger clearly got a sniff early on that he was going to have this lad today, and he just had him on strings. So Amram did right taking him off in the end, and we did seem to cool it down that side after that.
Yeah, I think I agree. Then obviously Ahmad does. He comes up with the goods, doesn't he? He's our best player, isn't he, at the moment, Ahmad? I think it's fair to say. He pulls us out the shit, doesn't he, at the end of Southampton, really? I mean, he gets lucky with his first one, a very good finish on the second, gets lucky again maybe with his third. But that still felt like a defeat to me. I don't know. Is that fair to say, Daz? I don't know.
Yeah, I think the defeat was just the feeling of defeat. And I walked away from the Southampton game. 3-1's a good result. 3-1 is a good result. First hat-trick by an African player. Loads of positives when you actually look at the black and white of that. But it does feel like it was a defeat. And that was because of the performance, because of who we played and the position that they're in and the fact that we was at home. I think a couple of things that I do like that I saw, and we had a bit of back and forth in the comments about this, was first one, Ahmed is a number 10. He's not a right wing back. He might be able to cover the right wing back position, but he is a number 10. Him and Bruno, for me, are the two number 10s. They've got to be the first choice number 10s. One's a creator. One can just run with the ball and do magic things, and they're completely opposite, but they're amazing. I think that the confidence of that lad is just growing and growing and growing. The other thing we've learned, and we went back and forth on this, is Manchester United desperately need, especially if we're going to get rid of a couple of senior players in this team, senior leaders, because it wasn't a coincidence that when you brought in Eriksen, that the performance has improved. It wasn't just bringing in one or two players. It was players like Eriksen and Maguire that you bring on, and it just lifts the leadership, in the team. And it's great having a really young team. And I said this to you, of 24 to 26-year-old footballers. But on games like today, in games like Southampton, you need a player that's just 29, 32 years old. I'll give you a perfect example. What Luka Modric does for Real Madrid right now, he's not the Luka Modric that he was 5-6 years ago. He probably lower than a lot of midfielders in terms of quality, but he adds so much to a team that you just need it sometimes, and we massively lack in that, especially when we've got a senior player in Marcus Rashford that obviously we're not using, and the team's young, and it just needs that seniorship in it, you know what I mean? And I think that was why Alex Ferguson was so good, because he had the right balance between young players, players coming into the prime, players on the back end of the prime, and then he had his senior players in that team. And them senior players, whether they was on the pitch or not, they increased the dressing room. I mean, a perfect example is over the last 2 years or so, we hear about these stories of Rashford and Sancho in dressing room dramas and stuff. That wouldn't have happened with Roy Keane and Ryan Giggs and Paul Scholes in that.
No.
And it's not just because of how good they was as players. It was just because you had leaders in that team that just wouldn't have allowed this rubbish to go on. And we're massively lacking that. So I think that bringing in, especially if you're going to lose Eriksen and Casemiro, it's important to bring in senior players. They don't need to play, but like Johnny Evans, they don't need to play. But there's certain games where you're really going to need them.
Yeah. I as I said to you on the messages we were exchanging, Daz, I agree with you to a certain extent. I do agree with Boxer. I do think times have changed quite a lot. I don't think really squad leaders is what many teams have nowadays, to be fair. But we got through the Southampton game by the skin of our teeth. We got through 3-1. And then the starting lineup comes out, Adam. Xerxes starts, Yoro keeps his place. Was you happy with what the lineup said today?
I was. I looked at that lineup and thought, yeah, that's probably what I put out there today, and they just didn't perform. Just like I said to you earlier, just frustrating is the word. You just really don't know what you're going to get with this team, because that lineup came out and I thought, you know what, we'll probably turn them over today, because I was a bit 50-50 in my pre-match. For me, it was all dependent on how would we recovered from Thursday and what Brighton team would turn up, because they've been a bit up and down this season. They've been brilliant one week, not so good the next. And they turned up and we didn't. I think it was as simple as that. Didn't help ourselves again with silly errors. And they had a game plan ultimately. They had the tactics spot on and it worked perfectly. And the fast becoming Brighton a bogey team of ours. I don't know if you've noticed us in the stats the last couple of years, but we seem to really, really struggle with them home and away whenever we go up against them. There was the infamous, opening day of Ten Hag's tenure when we lost 2-0. We lost their place when I think it was Radnick, when we went down there and lost 3 or 4-0. I can't remember exactly when it was, but they've become a big bogey team of ours and they got it absolutely spot on today. And just very embarrassing to be a United fan at the moment. That's how I'd sum it up.
Yeah. I think we've lost 5 of the last 7 against Brighton in all competitions. I think that's a stat. And I think they've beat us the last 3 times they've come to Old Trafford as well. I was like you pre-match. I was very sort of split. I wasn't too sure. But 5 minutes in, Daz, a ball over the top. I'm sure you've seen the goal. A ball over the top. Brighton just getting far too easily for me. We just can't be giving away soft goals like that, can we?
The first goal I can forgive, and the reason why I can forgive it, it was a soft goal and we should be doing better in positions like that, whether that means the goalkeeper comes out really early and he claims it in the middle of our half, a bit like you'd see with other goalkeepers like Edison and Alisson. They'd be straight out, they'd be getting that before the striker even gets it. But one of the downsides to playing a high line is you are going to get caught like that from time to time. You even look at Liverpool when they won the Champions League and they arguably had the best defence in the world. They got caught like that once or twice. It does happen, so I can forgive the first goal because it is a side effect of playing a high line from. It doesn't help that our defence is a little bit slower than most teams. So I can 100% forgive that goal. But yeah, we should have been doing better. 100%.
I think they caught us a bit cold, didn't they? Is how it felt to me. They caught us a bit cold with that ball over the top. But I'm sure he said in his pre-match, Amarin, we've got to start building on clean sheets. We've got to start being harder to beat. But I thought we reacted quite well from going 1-0 down at them. I thought we played some decent stuff. And then we got the foul for the penalty. Do you think it was a foul?
Yeah, it was Stonewall. You just can't argue with it, whether you're a Brighton fan or not. For me, it was a clear penalty. VAR didn't screw us over for once. We should have had one against Southampton, but we won't go backwards and get into that. But yeah, it was really clear for me, and it was a lovely penalty again by Fernandez. He's really doing well with those at the moment. And yeah, I agree. I thought we had a really good reaction at 1-1. I thought, right, here we are. We're going to build on this now, some momentum. We'll go 2-3 up on them, and just didn't happen in the end.
It felt like we dropped off a little bit after we equalised. It felt like we kind of sat back again. But I thought the first half, I thought Xerxes was performing quite well, Daz. I thought he was holding it up. I thought he was connecting it really well. I thought the team was pressing very well in a unit. I thought they were pressing really well and causing Brighton some problems. But we get to half time and it's 1-1. And then kind of like what Adam's saying, it feels like we're playing okay. It feels like we might nick this one. And then we just come out really flat again in the second half. It's like how the game started again. It's very flat and Brighton are on the front foot. And then Brighton get the disallowed goal. Have you seen that, Daz? Do you think that was right to disallow that?
Yeah. It just, when you watch the goal, you just say to yourself, you put your head in your hands and you say it's so avoidable. And I know it's always easy to say that as a spectator, that was avoidable. He could have done that. But no matter how you break that down, everybody should have been doing better. And it's just that goal sums up Man United's season. Just we need to be doing better. This is a team that, even when you look at all three goals, this is a team that, beyond our own mistakes, couldn't score a goal. Yet they scored 3 because of us, if that makes sense. We gave them a second goal because of poor defending.
Do you think Onana should be doing better with that second goal, Adam?
It's a difficult one to say,
Adam does. Let Adam, and I'll come back to
you. It's a difficult one. It's very easy to always blame the keeper, I think. But I just don't think collectively, as a team, we're doing very well defensively. We shouldn't be getting into those positions in the first place where we can get to a point where we're blaming the keeper. Yes, he probably could have done, but, like I say, easily the defence could have done a lot better as well, I think.
Yeah, you stop it at source, don't you, as well, to start with? Looking at replays, it looks like a very good ball in, to be fair. It looks like kind of one of those, if you were a keeper, you're probably in two minds as to whether to come for that or not. But then we move to the third goal, Daz, and I'll ask you the same question. Should Onana be doing better with the third goal?
100%.
What the fuck is he doing?
He needs to keep hold of it. I'm like, as you say to yourself, why? How? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, it's the sort of claim, ground claim that you just be so routine for a Sunday League team. It's, obviously you have to take into account that sometimes the ball hits the goalkeeper with a bit of spin, maybe a bit of a, awkward moment, but it didn't look like that. It didn't look anything but routine. Didn't look as if the ball was spinning in an awkward way. Didn't look like it hit a bit of mud in, nothing looked out of the ordinary. And yeah, that is 100% a howler. But actually, when I watched the goal back, I actually thought Denis should have been doing was it Delict that was marking
Yeah.
him? But yeah. I thought Delict maybe could have got to that a little bit better. I know it clipped off the inside of his leg to go in, but I just thought maybe he should have done a bit better there as well, because
Yeah.
he was sort of the way his body was positioned, he was still in front of the striker in the goal. So, but it's when the goalkeeper makes a howler, you can't blame the defender. But yeah, it just seems like, and it's frustrating as well because, again, it's another goal gifted to Brighton. Gifted, and I know.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's frustrating.
I mean, at 2-1, Adam, I mean, you'd like to think we sort of 15, 20 minutes to go, we're going to pepper the Brighton goal at 2-1.
Yeah.
It just absolutely kills the game, doesn't it? That howler just absolutely
I
kills
thought
the game.
20 minutes to go, I thought, you know what, we're playing okay. I think we've got a chance to nick at least a draw here, which on balance, now we've been playing recently, I'd probably take at that point, given how the day had gone. But well, what is he doing, like we say? And there was a comment before, I think it was from Box, that I really liked. You can't even blame it on his age because he's 29, 30 on Arna. De Gea, when he came in, he was 19, 20. You could forgive the mistakes he did at that time. But Onana's a really experienced keeper. He was in a Champions League final 2 seasons ago with Inter Milan, was the man of the match in that game. He knows this. And like Daz said, that's the kind of stuff you see in Sunday League. And you probably actually expect a Sunday League keeper to come out, slide and pick that up absolutely no problem. Is it the anxiety? Is it the pressure of wearing that shirt in front of the Stretford end? I honestly don't know, but we're just making a rod for our own back at the minute. That's what it feels like. We take 1 step forward and 2 steps back. That's just what it feels like. We had the Arsenal-Liverpool game. We thought, right, they've got it. They finally got it. They've worked the mentality out. They understand it now. And then Southampton and Brighton back to back, even though we won, like we said, it felt like a defeat. We just, keep making these really simple schoolboy errors. And what can Amaron do about that? He stood there helpless on the side of the pitch, and he can't help that Onana's making a clanger like that. It's just, like I said, complacency. He's unbelievable at the moment. It's just incredibly frustrating to watch. Yeah,
it is. I mean, you can't give goals away in our league. You just can't. Whoever you're playing, you can't. And I saw a stat earlier. Onana is now in double figures of goals that he's given away through fumbles, through sort of mishandling of the balls. And that's big. I think when we're struggling to score goals, that's massive, I think. But here's one for you, Daz, from Philip in the comments. How can we play like that against Liverpool and Arsenal and City? I mean, we obviously got the win at the Etihad. And then go back to, as Adam was saying, playing like this against Southampton and Brighton. But what is it? I mean, it's something that we will all be sort of scratching our heads with. Why can't we perform like that every week? What is it? I get players are tired. But you're playing for Manchester United. Do you know what I mean? Why can't we do it week in, week out? What's stopping us from doing it?
I think sometimes different teams, make styles on the pitch. I think the way that Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool play actually suit Man United. I think because we play on the counter, we look better on the counter. We don't look like a team that's the top 6 teams in the way that we attack teams. We just don't do that. And I think that is maybe some part at fault to Erik ten Hag, because that mentality in this team was implemented by him over the last 2 years. And that's obviously going to take a while for Ruben Amorim to mentally circulate out. You're going to need a pre-season, a couple of players in just to change that. But so them teams suit us anyway. It helped. I think if we're being honest with ourselves, truthfully honest as a fan base, it was far from the best Arsenal team, Man City team, Liverpool team. Granted, you play the teams that you play and you get the results that you get. You can only play the team that you come across, but it wasn't the best teams. But it's the style suited us. The problem is when you come to a team like Southampton, it's your job to say, we don't need Aaron Maguire in that team, which the manager didn't put him in. We need a Lenny Euro because he's been, I said this in the pre-game, because he's better at moving forward. He's better at carrying the ball. You then need a player like Rasmus Højlund that can attack defenders, that can run with the ball.
Yeah.
And where was it? Where was it? The Leniero wasn't moving forward with the ball. Hoyland couldn't move with the ball, couldn't receive the ball. And where was it? Where was this spark, this sense of, which you've got to then ask yourself the question, is this a coaching issue? Is the coach saying, no, I want you to counter when possible, I don't want you to attack these teams? We don't know that. Or is this just the team is still struggling from that poor Eric Ten Hag mentality that we're going to play defensive? I think you've got to be mindful as well. There is still a couple of these players that have come from defensive teams as well because of just where we purchased the players from. So maybe that's it. I don't know. But it seems as if this team can't play two different games. So we can't attack and we can't defend. And my argument is, and I actually had this conversation with a couple of Liverpool fans that, said, oh, we got to draw at Anfield because we parked the bus. End of the day, being mindful that another team is better than you makes your coach really good, because then you set your team up. And how do you beat that team if you can't match them player for player? And we can't match Liverpool play for player. We're not a team that can win the league. So Ruben Amorim has to set this team up where he plays the extra defender, he plays the extra midfielder, and we do play a little bit better on the transition and the counter, which is what we did. And this is ultimately where I think we should have beat Liverpool and what, but ultimately we got that draw. Same against Arsenal. We knew we couldn't beat them player for player. So you give the coach so much credit because he sets up like that. The reality is we need to have that same mentality from the coach against teams like Southampton. Sorry, let's play two. We don't need two attacking midfielders, but we could do with two strikers. Let's just switch it up just a little bit against Southampton. Let's just put the extra man up top instead of at the back.
I kind of get what you're saying. So you kind of flip that around, Adam, with what Daz is saying, that we're maybe the underdog possibly at Liverpool and Arsenal and City, and we're playing in such a way because we don't want to go toe to toe with them. So why can Southampton come to Old Trafford and do that to us? Why can Southampton be the underdog but play on the front foot and play with no fear almost as to it's a bit of a dead rubber, we're going to lose? Why can they do that and we can't?
So what I said earlier, I think we have now for a number of years really struggled against transitional teams and teams that play that low block. The stats speak for themselves. We're so low goal scoring at the minute. We just really struggle with creativity. Our best seasons recently, arguably, have been when we have played as a transitional team, played on a counter-attack. We've gone and mauled teams 4-5-0 because we've just hit them on counter-attack after counter-attack after counter-attack, playing the low block. Now it's the reverse on us. We're trying to be the player that is the creative one, that is on the front foot, and we just can't break these teams down. It's always, you see it every single game. Even my lads picked up on it, my 11-year-old. We get the ball, we charge at them, we get to about start of the box, and we just stop, look round, pass back. And my lad's always like, why are you stopping the momentum? Keep running forward. And he's absolutely right. We just seem to get a nosebleed when we get up there and think, we've not got clear grass in front of us. This isn't a counter-attack. What do we do? There's still 4 or 5 defenders here we've got to beat. They just really seem to struggle with that. And you can see Almiron, he's already turning bleeding grey on that sideline, struggling with what does he do to change that? Yeah. And the honest answer is we need a significant overhaul of the squad, because we're built for a transitional system, not the system that Almiron wants to play, which is more possession-based and more creative. And that isn't going to happen overnight because of the FFP, because of all the money and all that nonsense, but because of the players we've still got at the club that are on these massive wages, massive contracts, your Casemiros, your Rashfords. You need a lot of them to go out the door that were bought for that transitional football, and bring some new ones in. And it's going to be a significant summer. And I think a lot of this is Almiron saying, okay, you've brought me in mid-season, you want this to work. Here's the problem. You need to back me. That's exactly what he's saying to that board. and only time will tell. I don't think we're making any moves in January by all accounts. So
No.
I think we're in for the long haul for the rest of the season.
Can I answer that question as well, Andy, about why
Go for it.
Southampton, being the underdogs at Old Trafford, 100% have the right to come to Old Trafford and pinch a point or pinch 3 points. 100%.
Yeah.
If we can do it against Liverpool and Arsenal, 100%. I think the big difference is, if the game would have gone, Man United would have had like 50 shots and it just didn't go for us. The Southampton pulled out a goalkeeping masterclass like Onana did. You walk away from that thinking, oh, finishing just cost us. And then Southampton pick one up from a corner late in the game. You walk away, think we was the better team. We deserved the 3 points. But they've just pinched, they've pinched a point, they've pinched 3 points. And it's what we call a smash and grab. But that's not what Southampton did. We took the smash and grab, not them. And I think that's why it's a completely different, because we did the smash and grab where it should, as the underdogs,
my point is kind of, so Southampton have come to Old Trafford probably not thinking they're going to get anything. So they've gone to Old Trafford thinking, right, we're going to have a real go here.
Yeah,
if we get them 3 or 4, no one's expecting us to get anything anyway. Why can't we?
Yeah.
Why can't we approach games like that? Are we approaching it with a fear, Adam, that if we go to attacking, even against sides like, because it really feels like we're playing on the back foot all the time. We're playing like the away team all the time. Is there a fear there that they don't want to get turned over, but then they don't want to push the button enough to really like have a go? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we're not quite good enough going forward where we can get 2 or 3 in, a half and be comfortable and have vast majority of the possession. And there's just a significant anxiety, it seems, between this team. Like, if they're not doing well in that first 20 minutes, the Reds start to go and they start panicking, and these misplaced passes, loose tackles, all of that comes in. We end up making a silly error. Suddenly we're 1-2-0 down. There's just a lot of anxiety and fear in this team. There really is. And I think it's just because of the last couple of seasons that all of them the club have experienced. But, there's enough senior players in there to be sort of galvanising everyone. Fernandes, De Ligt, Maguire, Onana, Mazraoui's not too... I think he's in his late 20s now.
Yeah.
The list goes on. So there are senior players in there on that pitch should be going, come on, lads, right, let's get hold of this. It's a really difficult one. I mean, God, I wish I was a clinical psychologist and I could actually analyse it all properly in the body language and everything, because you'd have a lot clearer.
I think as well, it doesn't help with everything that's happening at the club. You've got this new manager in who fancies different players. Well, right or wrong, he fancies different players. You've got Rashford, that's a senior player that seems to be exiled. You've got Garnacho that seems to be negotiating with 2 or 3 different teams. So as a player base, they're like, well, he might not be here. You've got Anthony, which advanced talks with Real Betis. He might not be here. Zirkzee has been in negotiations with other club. Mainu, you've got this. Is he signing a new contract, or is he cutting his losses and wants to go and win trophies? You know what I mean? It's been quite... and then you have the normal United problems on top of that. It's not a great place.
It's not a healthy work environment at the moment, is it? It's not a healthy
it's
work
not a great
environment.
place. I think when you look at this Liverpool team, you can see where they've dropped a few points for the similar reasons, because you've got Trent here, Virgil there, Mo Salah there, and you can tell there's been affecting them over the last 5-6 games. Although they're picking up points, but they've dropped points as well because of what's happening behind closed doors. So it affects even the best teams in the Premier League. Obviously, that's even worse. I think it makes, we talk about, attacking as well. I mean, I think it doesn't help that we've not got a goal scorer. I mean, I'll use one example. We don't need a Harry Kane, a Erling Haaland, a Wayne Rooney. We don't need that. I'd settle for a Teddy Sheringham. You wouldn't. I mean, I know as a United fan base, we think Teddy Sheringham was great. In reality, he wouldn't make the top 50 of Premier League strikers. But I'd settle for a Teddy Sheringham, someone that can just finish the goal composed and just, a younger version of a Jamie Vardy. I'd settle for that right now. I'd settle for that. And it doesn't help that we've not got that. So even if we are attacking teams, we've still not got a goal scorer. A bit like earlier in the season under Eric Ten Hag, we was creating so much, we was getting so many opportunities. And for the first, 5-6 games under Eric Ten Hag, minus the odd game, we was all coming away saying, we just need a goal scorer. We just need a goal scorer. So in this new system, when you're going to get less opportunities, it's so much more important to have that goal scorer, which we've just not got. Maybe the team looks different when you bring in an Osherman or, a Greg Caress, whatever his name is. Maybe the team looks different. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to struggle if you can't keep the ball out of the net your end, and then you can't put it in the net the other end. You're going to struggle, aren't you? But I'm going to throw a few things at both of you now. I'm going to play devil's advocate. I think I know both of you enough now to know where your minds are. So I'm going to throw sort of little bits at you. Are we in a worse state now, or are we in a better state now than when we had Ten Hag? Has the changing of managers made enough of a difference, Adam?
We're in a worse place simply because you've done it halfway through the season. You brought in the yin to the yang of Ten Hag in terms of the styles of football couldn't be different. And as I said earlier, you've just spent another 200 million on Ten Hag to get in this transitional football team, which is the complete opposite of what Amorim wants to do. And Amorim is rightly very stubborn and will not change his approach and his philosophy. So a lot of this is down to ownership decisions, like for me, poor, bad decisions. And I think now we're in a worse place because we've hit that massive red reset button. And unfortunately, change is painful in anything in life. And that is exactly what we're going through now, is a huge period of change at this club, both on and off the pitch. So currently, we're in a worse place. Hopefully, long-term, change will, force growth. That's what I'm hoping for the club.
Yeah, like short-term pain for long-term success and all that. Daz, I'm going to pose the same question to you. I have a little insight into what you're going to think here. So, do you feel we're in a better spot now?
I genuinely think it's a glass half full question because, yes, we are in a worse state. We was a team that was challenging for trophies, League Cup, FA Cup, no matter, we were challenging for trophies to a team that obviously isn't. We was a team that could create just as many chances as Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, to a team that can't create more than Wolves. We was a team that, whether people like it or not, was getting clean sheets, because when the day Ten Hag was sacked, Onana was top of the clean sheet table, to a team that just can't keep clean sheets anymore. We was a team that was just underperforming for me. We've got none of that now. But where I say the glass is a half full question is, Eric Ten Hag was doing all of that, and I think it was good in hindsight, but he was papering over any weaknesses we had in that team. The glass half full thing is, Ruben Amorim, from the data and the performances, has regressed massively, but we now know without a shadow of a doubt where the problems are in this team. So we are potentially in a better position to fix them now than what we was under Eric Ten Hag, which means, you asked the question, could Eric Ten Hag have won the Premier League? No. I think he could have, floated in the top 4, but I don't think he would have been able to win the Premier League. Could Ruben Amorim, he can fix them problems that we now know exist? So it's one of them. I think it's suppose, looking back to the defence, I mean, we can't keep clean sheets, we're conceding loads of goals, but individually, every single one of them defenders have showed us that they are great defenders. They can play for Man United. He just needs them to play together. That's the challenge. Is that, so it's how do you fix that problem? But we now know that these players are putting in individually good performances. The issues lie like today, where it's a team that's broken down, that's created the problems. So I think it's a glass half full. I think for me, I genuinely believe Ruben Amorim can fix the problems with the backing of the board if given time. Unfortunately, right now, if the league would have started when he took over, we'd be sat in 18th position, and is in relegation form. He is in sackable form, and that Southampton game, had we not pinched it at the end, was a game where you could walk away and say, that sacks the manager. That sacks the manager. So will he get the time in order to implement everything? Is Man United prepared to sit 15th in the Premier League for 2 seasons? I don't think, as a board, that's acceptable. So so it's a glass half full. I think we are in a worse position, but it's going to come down to the patience and the resolve of the board.
Yeah.
Whether they're prepared to sit in that position for 2 seasons to fix it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. It's all about how far they're willing for us to go, I think. But today, Adam, has been our 6th home defeat from the 12 that we've had so far this season. That's the worst since 1893-94 season. So what's that, 120 odd years, something like that. Is Amorim doing enough to change what's happening, or is he just putting the same out there, expecting the same results, and it just constantly not working? I mean, what's that famous phrase of,
I know what you're going to say.
You keep doing the same things and expect a different result.
I was about to say the exact same thing, because
is he doing enough?
He's already said point blank he's not changing, and he said, I will get the sack before I change the way I play football. And he will have told the board that when they interviewed him and when he got the job. And he will have said to them, this team cannot play the system I want to play, but I'm not changing it. So, the board know that, and it's like you say, have they got the balls and the patience to actually give him that 2-3 seasons to say, well, go on then, show us what you can do with the right ammo and with the right amount to back him. He has said he makes subtle changes, and if you watch the games very closely, he does, opposition to opposition, which is fair.
Yeah.
But is he going to hold his nerve? That's the big question. If we continue to lose like this, I have a sneaking suspicion before the end of the season, he may very well make some changes that will just putting points on the board just to calm everything down, calm everyone down. Then he might get us to the summer. There's no internationals on this summer. He's going to have a full pre-season with them. And then he can actually work on this, and he can get a few players in, a few players out. We will see. That's what I personally do, but I'm not Manchester United's manager. So we'll just see what he does before the end of the season. Or the other side of it, the players might suddenly get it one morning. It might just all click when they wake up. But I could also see pigs flying at the same time. So we'll have to see.
That's obviously we brought Amorim in because he plays the 3-4-3, or however it is you want to say. It's like buying a Porsche, innit? And then it's not working, and then I want it to be a Skoda. We brought that Porsche because we want it to be a Porsche. So is he right that he's not changing? Is he right to be very much, this is my style, I ain't changing it, regardless?
If this is, obviously, you'd have sat down with the board and it'd have created a 4 or 5 year plan. This is what we look like in 4 or 5 years' time. And it could have been that he sat down with the board and he told him that I'm going to come in and play the system. I'm not going to change it. But it's an important process because this season we could finish out of a Champions League position. We could finish in quite an, but it will give us the foundation and the blueprint of what we need to change. We need to find the problem, and in order to find the problem, you need to expose the problem. So if this is the long-term vision for the club to play the 3-5 whatever system and 3-4-3 system, then 100% he needs to stick with it, because when you start changing it, you're confusing players, and it's got to be the system. And you wouldn't see Pep move into 4-2-2 because he's just lost 9 out of 10 games or whatever. You know what I mean? You wouldn't see do that. He sticks with what works, and then you get to your transfer window. You say to your board, "I need X, Y, and Z to make this work." And obviously, that's what Pep's done. He's gone to his board and he's said, "I need a midfielder, I need a defender." And obviously, Man City board has backed Pep, has brought the players in, and he will continue to play the system he's always played. I think there needs to be some flexibility slightly. If we come to the end of the transfer window and we've brought nobody in, and by some miracle we've still got Marcus Rashford as a player, I think there has to be some sort of common ground where he says Marcus Rashford's a senior player, he is a player of quality, he can score goals. We need to try and find and make him work for the next 6 months, and I think that's got to be, an important factor in this. It's a bit like Luke Shaw. If Luke Shaw comes back from fitness and you say to yourself he can only play every 3 games because he's going to get injured otherwise, we make do. We only play him every 3 games. We don't try and burn him out and get injured after 6.
Yeah.
He has got to be some flexibility there. He has got to say, for example, Xerxes and Hoyland aren't working. I'm going to fast track Obi Martin through. Not going to do him any harm. Not going to do it. Can't do it worse than what we're doing. Or it could just be, I'm going to play Mason Mount there and I'm going to put Ahmed up top. It's not going to be his natural position, but you're trying different things within your system, within your formation. So I'm not expecting him to change his formation unless we get to a point where we've only got 2 defenders and he's got to go to 4-4-2. So I'm not expecting him to change his formation or his system, but I would like to see if this persists over the next 4 weeks, to be some more experimentation, whether that is we bring a few more academy players through like Obi Martin, because not being funny, Wayne Rooney was scoring at 16, Theo Walcott was smashing it at 16, Aaron Lennon was smashing it at 16. Over the years there has been a really good example in the Premier League of 16-year-old players coming through and absolutely smashing it. Obi Martin, why not? We need a goal scorer. It's evident Hoyland and Xerxes aren't that. So your job is to find goals. If you've got an academy wonder kid, give him a run out. If you play him 2 games and is absolutely shocking, he's training with the first team, he's around the first team. Mm-hmm. Your goal is for Obi Martin to be a senior player, whether that would be next year or the year after permanently. So being around the senior team isn't going to do him any harm now. Being around Ruben Amorim, learning this system isn't going to do him any harm. But, we said this for weeks, it does no harm bringing him through, even if he got 10 opportunities and he missed all 10.
Yeah.
It's no worse than what's happening now.
Yeah, I think it comes back to that thing of the being a fear of just not getting tated or making the wrong decision. Or there seems to be we just don't seem to have it at the moment. And even with decisions like that, we don't seem to have it at the moment just to really push that button and have a go. But I'm hoping it comes over time. But a few things he said in his interviews after the game, he said, "I'm not going to change. We can succeed, but we've got to survive the moment now," which is kind of what he said at the beginning of the season. That what was the line? The storm's coming and we're going to suffer or something. He said, "We know. I know that we have a new manager that's losing more than the last one, but we may be the worst team in United's history." As much as that may be right, Adam, do the players want to hear that?
I think the players will be aware of it, if I'm honest. I think they're going to look at themselves and they're going to look at the results, look at the performances, and think, "Yeah, we're terrible as a team at the moment. Let's be frank. It's happened in United's history. Don't get me wrong. We were talking about Denis Law before, famously relegated us with that backfield goal and never played a league goal game again because he loved us that much. So we have been in worse positions in our past, but it doesn't feel like that right now. This feels like, certainly in Premier League history, the worst United team there ever has been.
Yeah.
And I don't think the players will be unaware of that because we are a team in transition. Even pre-Amorim, a lot of the problems this season with Ten Hag, I thought, was because we're bringing through a big raft of youngsters that are probably 2 or 3 seasons from hitting that stride where they are top-end Premier League players. Your likes of Hoyland, Xerxes, Garnacho, Menu, list goes on. So we were in that transitional period anyway, but then throw in a new manager, an entirely new system, and this is where we're at, as a club. So the storm certainly is here, and I don't even think we've reached the eye yet, if I'm honest. I think it's going to be a very bumpy ride for the next sort of 4 months, going into obviously the end of it at May. and we'll just have to see what happens. But the most important thing is we've just got to stick behind the team, stick behind the manager as United fans, no matter how tough it gets. And know there is probably a plan behind the scenes that we're not privy to at the moment, because that's how businesses work ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to sack him before he gets a transfer window, and that transfer window is going to be the summer, isn't it?
Yeah, ending out this January.
I remember talking to you in sort of Ten Hag days, Adam. I remember you were very much that we should keep Ten Hag and kind of go with the process. Do you still stand by that? Do you think it was still wrong that we got rid of Ten Hag?
I think it was the wrong time to sack him. Like I said earlier, you're bringing in, a yin to a yang in terms of managers. They're very much polar opposites. I think if you were going to sack Ten Hag, it should have been done in the summer. But then all that messing around went on, them going to visit him in Spain on his holiday and talk to him and try and get him signed a new contract. So it should have either been, right, let's do it then. Or if they were going to sack him when they did do, I would have probably put Ruud in interim charge till the end of the season.
Yeah.
Telling him full well, this is just till the end of the season, and have something in contract with Amorim for the summer so we could come in and have that summer to change everything in the club. But they've tried to do it because I don't know why he even said he asked if he could do it at the end of the season. He wanted to stay with sports until the end because he knew he was going to come in. He's not daft, Amorim. He'll have been watching United games when all that was going on, and he'll have seen the team and the players that he was walking into, and he will have known what is happening now was going to happen. So I just don't think it was necessarily the right time to sack Ten Hag. I don't think Ten Hag would have done any worse for the rest of the season if he'd have been given the time. And then at the end of the season, if they reviewed it and said, not good enough, we've not seen any improvement, then you sack him and get Amorim in. But we are where we are now. It's all if buts and maybes, so we just need to carry on.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with you. I think we're massively suffering now for what we didn't do in the summer. I think the decision making in the summer was dreadful, giving Ten Hag X amount of money to buy his players, and as you said, a totally different system to what Amorim wants to play. It's just all a big mess. But to you, Daz, as I say, Amorim says this is the worst United team. We can obviously only go off really what our lifetime has said. Do you think this is the worst United team that you've ever seen in your lifetime?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Just the results of the data indicate that. I don't think Man United's ever been in this position at this point in the season, ever, even when we've had bad days. I think what Ruben Amorim said wasn't wrong. And I want to start by saying what he said wasn't wrong. But for me, I was on the fence, and you know this, about whether or not he was the right man for Manchester United based on the last 11 games. Maybe Man United, maybe he just wasn't the right man for Man United, and maybe he just isn't the right man for Man United. Only time will tell that. But that interview today really worried me, because his job as commander-in-chief, as the manager, is to motivate and inspire his team. What does that say to this team? That you're shit, you're the worst United team ever. That's playing Russian roulette. That's playing Russian roulette with some of these players, as if to say, well, why am I here? Why am I here then? And there's some of these, it's either let's inspire the team by saying you're correct, but we've got a plan to go forward, or it very much demotivates the team and they're like, well, we're losing the dressing room. I think, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this now. What we got left, 16 games-ish, something like that?
Yeah, 14, 16, something like that.
We've got
Don't depress me, Daz, on a Sunday night, Jesus.
If in the next 10 games we pick up 5 more defeats, and I'm going to use 5 being which is 50%. If in the next 10 games we pick up 5 defeats, I want the board to be ruthless, not just with the likes of Onana in the summer and say, you're not good enough, we're bringing someone else in, because we need that ruthlessness, but we also need it for the manager, because this team is better than what we are seeing. No matter what, it's better than drawing to Ipswich. It's better than a smash and grab. We spoke about this. We know this team is better, even in transition. And I would be chucking every single penny at Carlo Ancelotti in the summer because he's going to be free. And he knows the Premier League. He knows football. He knows the big club. His proven success record. And actually, the best manager post Alex Ferguson is arguably Jose Mourinho. Proven, Premier League proven success. I think the only difference is Ancelotti would happily sit at a team 5-6 years. We know Jose Mourinho will only stay maybe 3 tops. So, you know, and that's honestly my honest opinion. I think I'm not going to be Ruben Amorim in or out. Results Man United should be getting. I would have happily have lost to Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, but I want to be beating Bournemouth. You know, Wolves.
Let me ask you this then, Daz. Let me ask you this then. That's why I like having you two on, because you're massively different. So I'll ask you this, Daz. If form carries on, as you say, we're going to lose 5 games and all that, do you think you'll get sacked before the summer? Quick answer, because I'm going to throw the same to Adam as well.
Yeah, I really do. Just from a financial point of view, I think look, I said to you, I believe that this man could win the league with Manchester United, given the backing, given the time. Unfortunately,
but if you sack him, if you sack him, he's not had the backing all the time, now, has he?
No, but that's the most important thing. Time needs to be earned, especially at a club like Man United. And I said this to you all the time. Every single manager in the Premier League has a minimum requirement of what they need to achieve in the job. That is the job that is the requirement that keeps you in a job. And I
What do you think that would have been? What do you think Ineos would have told him that they want from him in the remaining 6 months of this season?
It's tough to call it a position in the league, because I actually said at the start of the season this year that even if Man United had an incredible year, given the fact that Chelsea look more improved, there was always going to be a surprise in there. Nottingham Forest, Liverpool are either going to be hit or miss depending on how Arne Slot came in. Man City was going to be there. Arsenal was going to be there. Obviously, Man City are not there, but somebody good was going to miss out on the top 4. Somebody good that maybe deserved Champions League football, that maybe would have got it in past seasons, was going to miss out. So it's hard for me to call it a position of where Manchester United should be. I think a minimum requirement would be sometimes performances, not going to Liverpool and losing 7-0. Granted, we didn't do that. Not getting smashed by your rivals, and he's not done that. So I'll give him his due. But not going to Bournemouth and losing 3-0. Not smashing, grabbing a victory against bottom of the table. I think I said this, Ruben Amorim's #1 job taking in charge of Man United, because he didn't have a summer, he didn't have much training, and he's not really had any impact on what this team can massively achieve between now and what would have been the January window. He needs to do better than what the previous manager did that got him sacked. Because ultimately, Ten Hag got sacked because he dropped below that minimum requirement. And Ruben Amorim needs to come in, not a new manager bounce, he just needs to come in and take this team back to a standard, which I would have thought would have been around the top 10. You know, floating around the top 10, knowing that we're not going to get Champions League football, and just sort of being a 50-50. See, maybe like where West Ham are now, sort of thing. You know, they're not going to get a Champions League or a European football space, but if they had a good run of games, they might sneak in. But you know, they're never going to be down the bottom. Right now, I mean, it's important to say Wolves have generated more points in the same time as Ruben Amorim. Wolves has generated 13 points in the Premier League since Ruben Amorim was employed. We've generated 11. He is literally worse than teams that are going to get relegated. For me, that is dropped below a standard. Now, that doesn't mean that Man United could easily go on a 5-6 game win streak, even if we're smashing and grabbing. But, you know, I just feel as if time is earned and he's not earning it. And sometimes Man United, I think it's important that even in a job, you're employing somebody. Sometimes you employ the wrong person, and sometimes it's not until they start the job and they get 6 months in, for example, that you think, oh shit, I should have employed such and such and made the wrong decision. That's okay to do that, so long as you act on it. Not let him have 3-4 years and realise that we've regressed massively. We stayed 15th in the table for 3-4 years and actually haven't improved. And this is the hard thing with this board, and it is going to be an hard decision because they have to make an educated decision on what we are seeing and the way that he is working with players on whether he even can improve this team. Because what happens if he has a full season, a full pre-season, a full transfer window, he gets £200 million in the summer, he gets his striker from Sporting Lisbon, he gets, you know what I mean, he gets a new goalkeeper, and this happens again next year. You know, it means you brought in a striker that couldn't make it in the Premier League, that is actually not in a Europe's top 5 league, he's doing great, but that doesn't mean that he's going to smash it in the Premier League. Romelu Lukaku being a perfect example, smashing it in Italy, but when he came back to Chelsea, he couldn't score. You know what I mean? Different leagues.
But
so
then,
just because you're doing well in
but then he's had money and time now, hasn't he? He's had the money and the time then now, hasn't he? If he's had the summer, he's had the money, he's had the time to try and bring in the players that he wants.
I think it's just about whether, again, it's an educated decision that the board have got to make. Do we trust this man to make a decision, or do we say, and this is what I would like to do in the summer, I would like to ask, if Ruben Amorim is still here in the summer, I do not want to be bringing his players in, because I felt we did that with Ten Hag. We brought in his Dutch players in, or players that had played his sort of Dutch system, and some of them have worked, some of them haven't. I don't want to do that in the first transfer window with Ruben Amorim. I want to ask him what he wants. I want a young, fast forward, and then a board, a recruitment team determine who that is based on a long-term vision for the club, whether that would be with or without a Ruben Amorim. I wouldn't, if that makes sense. I want not necessarily we're going to sport him for this player. No, we're going to be bringing in a young, fast forward, which you need. We might be able to find that in the Premier League. We might be able to find that in the Championship. Or, you know what I mean? But it's got to be very mindful that this manager might not work, and these players may have to play under an Ancelotti or a Thomas Frank in a year's time. And I know
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I know that's a bit cruel, because a bit like saying you're not backing the manager. But I think you are if you're bringing in the profile of player that he wants. And I think the perfect example of not backing the manager would have been Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer asked for a certain profile of player. He gave some examples of what he wanted, and he got the complete opposite. So
I think you could also turn that on its head, saying Ole didn't really want Ronaldo. But the board thought that was the right decision, and that really did Ollie, didn't it? Really,
maybe he would have improved had he not have had Ronaldo. Maybe they've brought in a different profile of forward because.
Well, let's put it to Adam. I can't remember what the question. What was the question?
Will he get sacked before the end of the season? I think was the long and short. I keep it short and sweet, where it's 10 to 10, and I'm sure we've all got work and stuff in the morning. No, we'll sack before the end of the season. He's their man. He's the Ineos man, and I think all these conversations will have gone on when he was hired. That he's already told them, and they've agreed to. It's going to be a tough half a season. I don't think that they're going to sack him regardless. We will not get relegated or anything like that. It will just be we're going to have a very poor finish in the Premier League. But I think, as he said time and time again, actually this club needs a shock like this to wake us up to the realisation of the problems that we do have. He has shown us the problems we have in that team, in that squad, and he is showing the board that. And I'm sure they're all taking notes. And I'm sure conversations are already well advanced in the background about the summer, who's going to be in, who's going to be out, who's going to be moved on. And as Daz said, I'm sure they're sitting down with Amorim and saying, what kind of players do you want? Here's a list of who we think could be available and within our budget. Do you have a preference? I'm sure all those conversations are already going on. But has Ineos and Amorim have both said themselves, this is a project. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. this is 4 or 5 years. That is the target Ineos ultimately have set around us getting back to challenging for the Premier League. And I think most of us with a sensible mind realise, looking at our squad by comparison to Arsenal, Liverpool, City, we are 4 or 5 years from being anywhere close to them.
Yeah, more off.
So you've picked your manager, you've picked the system that you're going to play, you've now got to stick with it, you've now got to back yourself, back him. And I don't think he's going to be getting sacked before a summer transfer window and a full pre-season. Like we said earlier, if it gets to December next year and actually we're still sitting 12th, 13th, results haven't improved, performances haven't improved, and there's been £200 million spent, well, yes, there's a mistake's been made there, and then you can have that conversation. But you've got to give the man time, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Curious question, Adam, on what you've just said. You mentioned, I knew you were going to say this, so I prepared something. You said he was an Ineos man. So I've actually prepared 2 things. The first one wasn't Dan Ashworth an Ineos man. He was actually Ineos' first man, a man that they paid millions to get, a man that they waited to get. And also, I've recently watched, just because I knew Radcliffe was going to be present, I've recently watched the Team Grenade speed test, and as always, is always asked about Man United. He said, sometimes you have to acknowledge something isn't working and act quickly before it can do more damage than good. And that was why he thinks that is why he sacked Dan Ashworth, because he felt it wasn't working straight away.
I think there's a big difference, though,
same feeling about the manager.
No, I think there's a big difference between the manager and the sporting director. Clearly, something's gone on with Dan Ashworth that we're not privy to. We'll probably never find out. He's obviously not done 1 or 2 things, or there's something gone on in the background. He's had disagreements, fallouts with other board members. We don't know. We're never going to know. But I think there's a huge difference between the sporting director and the manager. I think a lot more time and care was probably taken with the manager and with Barada and those conversations, and Wilcox and everyone else. I think myself, I think there was a falling out between Ratcliffe and Ashworth, which has ultimately led to him getting the sack. I think that's something that happened.
What my question would be then is, clearly, if he loses 16 out of 16 games, we're finishing bottom of the league and we're getting relegated. And obviously, he's getting...
That's not going to happen, though.
I know it won't happen, but me and Andy did something a couple of weeks ago. We put together a list of the remaining league fixtures that Man United have got, and I predicted every single result that I felt was fair. And in there, I said we'd lose to Liverpool, we'd beat Southampton, we'd lose to Brighton. And Andy saw this. But when you add up the points generated, we are relegated. And I showed this to Andy. And my argument to Andy was, and I'll send you the same thing, this is the prediction. Where are we getting enough points to not be relegated? Because
we're getting enough
the
points
Brighton
because
game, the Southampton game,
the 3 teams that came up, we're not getting relegated because the 3 teams that came up are absolutely appalling. And they're going to lose ultimately more games and more points than us. We've already won
in the last 9
games,
these teams have generated
Southampton at home.
But in the last 9 games, they've generated more points. So you say there's more teams generating less points. The fact is they're not.
I'll buy that.
Generating less points.
If we get relegated, Amran's getting sacked. But we're not getting relegated, so Amran's not getting sacked.
So what would you say got him sacked? Realistically,
relegation.
Relegation, but you would allow us to get to that point. You wouldn't let us get to.
Yeah, because you can't, as we've said for this entire stream, you can't expect the man to come in and work miracles when he's got to change an entire philosophy of a team. You can't expect him to come in and do that. If he got Manchester United Football Club relegated, absolutely, I would be the first one to say, it's clearly not working, we need to sack him, and you need to bring someone in. But you can't bring a manager in halfway through the season with no backing, no time to train. Probably one of the worst squads we've ever seen in United's history, certainly Premier League history, and expect him to wave a magic wand and suddenly we're challenging for top 6. We are going to finish bottom half of the table this season. And if that is short-term pain for long-term gain, I'm absolutely okay with that.
But we can't be put in a position where we are in the Championship next year. At what point do you say we are seriously in risk? Say we get another 10 games and we do lose 5 games and we draw 2 and we win 3, you know, which I think would put us neck and neck with Wolves, something like that. If we was level with Wolves, who are pretty much going to get relegated in 10 games, do you then say to yourself, we're sacking him, we're bringing in for
What's the
5
point now?
games just to keep
What
it
is
up?
the point? Yeah.
What's the point of doing that though?
You're not going to gain anything.
I don't know. I don't know whether that would be. And again, this is just putting a name out there. If we get 10 games, another 10 games, and we lose 5 and draw 3 and win 2, and we are level with Wolves, and you look at that and you genuinely look at the points and you think Wolves are getting relegated, we're on the same amount of points, a few bad results, and we could easily get relegated too. You look at Amorim's form over, you know, what would be 20 games in charge at that point, and you say his points per game are going to get us relegated. You then have to say we have to stay up 150 million%. And I'm going to put a joke. If we are 18th position or joint,
I just think you enjoy Manchester United managers being sacked, Daz, if I'm honest, because you were exactly the same with Ten Hag towards the end. Just have a bit of optimism, man. We're going to be fine. We're going to finish top half of this.
I just genuinely can't find it. And I'm like, it just feels at this point that although I feel that his philosophy and the way he talks could be that man, based on the data and what we are seeing, he has done worse than Eric Ten Hag with the same team.
Yeah,
but
and we've
not
just
just
talked
worse,
about all the reasons
massively
why
worse.
that's happened.
You know,
we just got. I think we've just got to get through this season. Really, we won't get relegated, and then it is about the rebuild. It really is. And then, as Adam says, if we get to Christmas, sort of February 26, and we're in the same position again, I think it's probably a valid conversation. But without giving the man money, without giving him time, we may as well have kept Ten Hag, and we probably wouldn't be much different than what we are now. Ten Hag might have won a couple of cups, but we were playing some abysmal football, and it's no real different, really. And I'm up for giving him time. I think we are going to have a really rough 3 or 4 months, but you've got to give him time. You have to give him money. That's the big thing. You have to give him money to do what he wants. You can't sack him because we ain't gonna spend absolutely nothing in January. You can't sack him without backing him. You just can't.
My biggest fear though is if you look you look at sort of, well, at the end of Ralph Ragnick, sort of the Ten Hag, and you look at the team that was there before and the team that we've got now, we gave the manager absolutely millions and he's made the team worse. We don't have a Paul Pogba in that team anymore. We don't have, you know what I mean? So what happens if we back Ruben Amorim?
You have to think as well, though.
And we end up with a team that is on par with.
But you have to think as well, though, Daz.
Top 5 leagues. That then
we've been like
going to take Christmas to rectify that, to get rid of low-level team players like Militia and a bad window. That could take 5 years to recover from because you're not going to get 12 players in one window.
We've been treading water for so long. We have to break. I keep saying to you when we have our conversations, we have to break this cycle. If we could get rid of Amorim and we could bring in another Ten Hag, who may win us a cup but would still finish sort of top 10. The desire for United and for Ineos should be getting us concrete top 4 team again. And if that is short-term pain for long-term results, I'm sure Chelsea finished. I'm sure they finished sort of 13th or 14th, and then they gave. It might have been Conte. They gave him big money to rebuild the team how he wanted, and I'm sure they won the league this season after or something.
We've seen sometimes, it this season. You think about
sometimes
that cycle. I mean, people talk about the cycle of having a manager for 2.5 years and sacking him, but when you go back and you genuinely, hand on your heart, analyse every manager we've had, not one of them, other than Jose Mourinho, and we all know he's a short-term manager for any club. So that meant that he didn't qualify for what we needed at United anyway, because we need a 5-year project. Not one manager we've hired has qualified for the job of Man United. So if Carlo Ancelotti, a man that has Premier League experience, who's played at the top of the game, has managed one of the world's top 6 clubs, is available, why not break the chain and go to best in class?
You only have to go back to the boss. Fergie managed in Scotland. He'd never had anything to do with England before. He wasn't ready for the English league, according to the press. We were absolute dog shit for a few years with Fergie until he got it how he wanted. I'm not for a minute saying Amarin's going to do what Fergie did and be this like colossus for us over sort of 30 years.
I really hope
but we
so.
gave
I
him
just
time
think
and we gave
football's
him.
different now.
I don't think the general sort of simple facts that Fergie was given time and trust by that board. I think it was Martin Edwards gave him like time and trust, and that history says that was the right thing to do. History may say that giving Amarin time and money is the wrong thing to do, but we have to break the cycle of bringing in managers having this very, very unreal expectation that we're going to be challenging for the league, and we have to build ourselves back up from the dust and the rubble again. Because as Adam says, we're absolute dog shit at the minute, but that ain't going to change. And there's not a cat in hell's chance that Carlo Ancelotti would be coming over to Old Trafford and managing Man United at the minute. It ain't going to happen, and it ain't going to happen. Do you know what I mean? We have to start at the ground level and build ourselves back up. And at the moment, we are in the dust, we're in the rubble, we're in the shit because we are terrible. But we have to build ourselves back up, and that ain't going to happen sacking a manager if we finish 16th to bring in someone that might finish 12th or 10th the next year, because you're just treading water all the time.
So we finish 15th then, which I mean it could be realistic. Miles away from between 10th and 15th, miles away from relegation. No Champions League European football. Assuming they're in that position, Man United's lost 200 million in TV rights.
But that's going to happen anyway, though.
No, but so my question is, you've lose 200 million in TV rights. You're losing extra fixture games. You're losing money in sponsorship because obviously the Adidas and the Snapdragon deal drops a little bit because you've not got the European coverage. Where's the money coming from to give Ruben Amorim in the summer? But it's
facts of what's going to happen, though, Daz. It's facts of what's going to happen. We're not going to bring someone in and automatically wave a magic wand and we're suddenly going to be like last season. We finished 8th. That's shockingly bad. Whether we finished 8th or whether we finished 15th, we're Man United, man. That's shit. The only reason we're in Europe this season is because we managed to not get battered by Liverpool in the semi-final and nick that and put on a performance in the final and win the cup. It's still not good enough.
Shit. We've got, I mean, I'm going to really quick. We've got a goalkeeper that made it to the Champions League final that arguably was one of the best goalkeepers in the world that year. We've got Denis, Mazraoui. These are played in Europe's biggest teams. We've got Casemiro, one of the greatest footballers ever, who's underperformed for a year. We've got,
but maybe they can't handle the pressure now.
Ugarte, again, played for one of Europe's biggest ever teams. Marcus Rashford, again, played in one of Europe's biggest ever teams. This team might be shit, but these players aren't.
No, I agree.
So how do you transition good players into a good team? The difference is a manager's job is to get the most out of players. We've got players that can and do make it into Europe's biggest teams, acting like a championship club. That is on the manager for me.
What player at United right now gets into that Real Madrid team?
Real Madrid, a
or
really
Liverpool,
poor example, but Liverpool, I think Delis is better than Canate. 100%.
Based on what though?
I think
Fernandes is the only one that's got a sniff of getting into Liverpool's team.
Yeah,
lads, I've got to be honest. I've got work really early in the morning. Can we wrap this up? It's now 10:10 near enough.
We can. Let's wrap it up now. So it's getting late. Right, cheers guys for jumping on. Adam, where can we find you?
Mostly haunting on TikTok. Hadfield Reacts. Come and give us a follow. It's usually me, Daz, and you all debating and squabbling between us. So, yeah,
lovely. We'll have to do a TikTok live, the three of us, and have a chin wag. Daz, where can we find you, buddy?
Over on TikTok, normally arguing. I've been actually generating quite a lot of views at the minute because of the arguments and the controversy. It's strange, because people love that. The minute I do a really good, sensible video, it gets no views. But I do, an out there video, when I get like 10,000 views, it's mad.
You got to stick with the controversy. That's where it's at, man. But yeah, everyone that's been watching, hopefully this coming week can be slightly better than the last one we just had. Couple of winnable, possibly games. I think there's a show in midweek. I'm not sure who it's with, but I'll be back next Sunday with a preview of the week. Rangers and Fulham, I think it is. But have a lovely week, and I'll catch you next weekend. Take it easy, guys. Appreciate you all dropping in.
See ya.